What's up, guys? Nathan Barna here. Welcome to Evolve Radio, something like that. Getting closer on a name. That's what's sticking so far. So welcome. Today, I wanted to talk about the cycles of life. I find that every year during this time when the summer starts to wind down and the season begins to change into fall, this is a time in my life where I find that my energy starts to retract and starts to move inward and puts me in more of a reflective and introspective phase, kind of, reflecting on the year and what I've done and who I am and who I want to be moving into the future. And a lot of times I've gotten into a really depressed state during this time because I've always felt that I needed to continue pushing the same way that I was during the summer, where that is the time for peak activity. But by doing so, I was kind of neglecting my inner urge, or that feeling or intuitive sense that I needed to start winding down, even though my ego was telling me that I needed to continue to push because there was more shit that needed to get done. Because I've kind of recognized this pattern, and I've been able to work with it and adjust my schedule and adjust my activities to kind of match how I'm feeling in the phase that I'm moving into. But the thing I wanted to get into today is kind of even deeper than that. I wanted to discuss really the whole nature of life and the cycles that are present within life, not only our own lives, but just in existence as a whole. As if we take this all the way back, really there could be no existence if it wasn't for a cyclical nature. In other words, if you look at the source of everything as zero, or they call it the 0 point field in quantum physics. If you take the 0 point field, which is absolute potential, you can only create something out of that 0 point field if you create a polarity or a cycle or a pole, a differential, two sides of north and south. Because in order for something to be something, it cannot be something else. And this is kind of where the idea of yin and yang come from in Chinese philosophy, because if those are the two forces that make up everything in the universe, and it can only be that way because of the fact of what I just said, that something can't be something unless it's not something else. So you can't have the idea of hot unless there's a cold. You can't have the idea of a night unless there's a day. You can't have the idea of life unless there's the idea of death. So this whole idea of cycles really originates all the way into the existence of life and the universe itself. And there's even, most of us think that the Big Bang was the start of creation, when really there's evidence pointing to the fact that the Big Bang that began is really just one Big Bang in a series of Big Bangs, and that once the Big Bang happens, there's a period of the universe expanding, but then it starts to contract back into itself so that the process can happen over again. In other words, the entire universe is just part of one cycle of potentially infinite cycles, and we're just having the experience of this space, this place in time and space. And really, when you look at consciousness also cannot exist without a polarity, without a duality. Because again, in order for me to know myself as me, in order for there to be an I, there also has to be a thou. In order for there to be a me, there has to be something that I identify with as not me. If I was one with everything, paradoxically, I would have no idea of existence, or I wouldn't have any awareness at all, because there has to be that polarity of consciousness. So you start to take this further along the line, when you look at the cycles of, again, even everything from the day to the month to the year, to the seasons, to the, even looking historically at our Earth. I was watching, I think it was Greg Braden. He has a series called Missing Links on Gaia, and the first episode he was talking about the cycles of the Earth and of economics and of humans, and he was saying how really the our current situation that we're in right now is really, if you look back at the cycles of all of these things over history, which he exposed and showed in this documentary, you can actually see that what we're experiencing right now is really just part of a cycle. It's not an anomaly. It's really, it can be predicted based on the cycles that we've been through previously. And so the whole reason I'm bringing this up is, especially in our very left brain linear thinking, we like to see life as this linear process from point A to point B, and that if we just take these steps to get to that point B, it can be this smooth ride to, smooth linear ride to that end destination. When really, as most of us have experienced, when we have a goal or a dream that we set for ourselves, a lot of times, most of the time, that's not a linear path to get there. But often we find ourselves frustrated because we're expecting there to be this linear process of something that is inherently cyclical in nature. And so when you can start to identify and embrace that reality, you can begin to set your life up and set your schedule and set your rhythm of your day and of your weeks, of months and years to match that inevitability of the cyclical nature of things and ride the wave of life versus trying to paddle upstream in an idea of a linear fashion. And so that's really the main point that I wanted to get across today. Recognize where these cycles are in your life, and instead of trying to reject them so that you can create this linear path for yourself and embrace those cycles, because even through different stages of our life, we move through these different cycles. Obviously, from being an infant to childhood to adulthood to our being wise or old, we also move through different stages of development, and we express different archetypes or forms of being more heavily at different stages than others. And again, when you try to just encapsulate this one version of yourself and try to hold on to that version and maintain it and not allow any change to happen, then ultimately you end up fighting against yourself and rejecting the nature of who you actually are. And really, the only thing that's for certain here is that nothing is for certain, because as the Buddhists say, everything is impermanent. And so when you try to hold on to one version of yourself or one way of being or one phase of your life, you're ultimately yourself back from continuing that growing process and potentially changing your ideas and changing who you are so that you can continue to progress into the next cycle and the next phase of your life. And a lot of times that may involve, growing your ideas about what you may have previously believed, and ideas that may have previously served you in certain parts of your life, but that are not conducive to taking you into the next phase of who you're supposed to be and what you ultimately want to be doing with your life. So meditate on this and embrace this idea and this reality that everything is and goes through cycles, and that nothing can be permanent, and see where this can take you and see how you can set up your life to embrace that reality. That's it.